I need to start wearing the mic just does funny stuff, and
Yeah.
I don't know.
Is it laughing at you?
It is. It's making fun of
The
me.
mic?
It's messing with my
Sometimes I don't know what to do
aura.
with my hands sometimes. It's like, is it right? I don't know.
What does this
What do
have
I
to
do?
Is it bright? What Okay.
Jazz hands.
Okay, I don't know what that was. Mertz, do you feel underrated?
Underrated, like in a movie context, I try to be like PG-13.
That's not what I meant. We're talking about CrossFit today. We're talking about underrated movements in CrossFit.
Oh, well, then I try to be like if I would say the movie context of programming, I try to be, Aladdin all the way up to Pulp Fiction. So I try to cover that whole spectrum.
Aladdin to Pulp Fiction. That's quite
I mean, that's a good programming, right? If you watch, what if you watch Aladdin and they go right to Pulp Fiction?
So I'm going to go from a flying carpet to the tactical games. I'm confused. Anyway, folks, hi, I'm Coach Tanya.
And I'm Coach Mertz.
This is the Affiliate Soapbox.
Yeah.
Today we're talking about some of the most underrated movements in CrossFit. The stuff that's not so sexy, not so hot.
The ultra PG, like think of I was gonna think Ren and Stimpy, but that's probably a little too grotesque.
Was that PG-13? Was that R? Was that like?
I'm trying to get like a kid's cartoon. What's the Blues show?
Blues Clues?
Blues Clues. All right. It's like we try to do Blues Clues around here sometimes. Not all the time. I mean, Blues Clues, and watch it every now and then. You learn a little something, but it's not entertaining, is it?
So what's Blues Clues? Let's decide what Blues Clues is other than a blue dog running around doing clues. Maybe in the gym.
I think it's relatable because every episode has something to learn. It's the basics of our humanity in a way, and some of our basic fundamental movements that we do in CrossFit should be done more often in CrossFit. We kind of get away from it. Now's the perfect time. The Open's over with. Quarterfinals is over with. Semifinals about to kick off, but most of us are not going to semifinals. So now's a great time to start peeling back that onion, get down to the core of it.
Wait, are you talking about like our fundamental movements? Are you
onion, Shrek. The onion layers.
Ogres have layers. Onions have layers. You get it.
Maybe we should just like watch them. Should we do some sort of like movie screening podcast?
I'll go back to my bout. What was the word when we said earlier? The PG-13.
The PG-13.
I'm Shrek. Shrek would be my programming.
Okay, Shrek. I don't know where to go from that. I don't know if I have an analogy. I'm going for, I don't know, Captain America, Iron Man. You're going for Shrek. That's fine.
I love it. I love it. So, so we're talking about here talking about I think some great carryover movements. And we actually see a lot of these carryovers a lot of times in warm-ups, single leg Romanian deadlifts.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So we're talking about movements that aren't muscle ups. You're talking about more fundamental, basic movements. I was thinking the fundamental movements of CrossFit, like your squat, like your
we can talk about that too. I mean, like take the squat, turn it into a tempo. Right? How many times do we program tempo?
I do pretty regularly. I think you see a tempo squat in here maybe once a month. I love tempo squats.
That's great, and I think that should be in there.
Yeah, the tempo squat, once you slow that movement down, lighten up that load, it makes you much more aware of how you're moving in each part of that movement. Like each little inch that you go down further into that depth, trying to get below parallel, it makes you aware of, am I shifting to the left? Am I shifting to the right? If you have a bar on your back, am I holding that bar in a good position, or am I just rushing through and usually dropping down into the bottom? Yeah, I think also, one thing I like about tempo squats is if you don't have a lot of weight, like let's say you're at a hotel, right? And you are trying to get your workout in.
There's only so many plates in there.
Right. Or if they even have plates, most of the time they don't have bars. You're lucky if you get dumbbells. So maybe you just you could have 215 dumbbells, right?
Yeah.
In that front rack position. And if you go tempo, if you're doing a tempo of say 10,
10,
right? 10 down, 2 second hold in the bottom, 5 second into
Yeah.
standing up and into
You
that
could
extension.
probably do that with
Woo!
two 15-pound dumbbells for a few reps and probably
And
just,
just be cashed.
yeah, it'd be cash. Tempo exposes lies.
No, 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 no. Wait, 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 wait. Wait, 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 wait.
Yes. You
You know,
think you have good movement.
yeah.
You think you're balanced, properly until you do it really, really slow.
Oh, yeah, yeah. And go back to seeing like Romanian deadlifts. Again, we do these a lot in warm-ups. I think it's one of those just most programmers have that in there, especially when you've just got out of bed, you're doing a morning class, getting
Mhm.
that balance coordination going on there. But to add some load on there, add a kettlebell where you have to use that kettlebell as leverage. And then, you can always increase that weight of that kettlebell until heavier and heavier. And if you really want to get into some strength, and it's great for imbalances, right?
Absolutely.
It's great for imbalances.
Are you recognizing when you're doing a regular kettlebell swing or when you're doing a deadlift that maybe the posterior muscles in your lower left side are not firing as efficiently as they are on the right side, right?
Yes. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
And you don't notice that till all of a sudden you're in that single leg movement.
100%, 100%. And then I love doing them with like a staggered stance with like a deadlift style, right? You get the barbell out in front,
Mhm.
stagger stance, and you can really load that weight up pretty good. And believe it or not, I mean, like you get to like maybe 25 to 50% of your deadlift weight. It'll get you. It'll
Oh,
get you.
absolutely. You're
It'll
gonna
get you.
you're gonna find out really quick if your left side and your right side are communicating
Oh,
properly, if
yeah.
they've been doing the same equal amount of work the
And
entire
I tell
time.
you, my hamstrings after I do those are pretty lit up. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. Well, and that's why I put them in our unweighted in our warm-ups a lot, because when you're doing an unweighted single leg RDL, right, you are really lighting up all of the muscles in that leg,
Yeah.
especially if you're balancing properly. You've got to grab the ground with your toes. You've got to keep that heel down. You want that slightly bent knee for balance. And as you go into that parallel position with your chest, and you're trying to focus on those hips not shifting.
That
You're
that rear leg not trying to drop
right,
too low to
exactly.
the ground.
You don't want it too low. You don't want to overarch your back.
Yeah, yeah.
You don't want that overextension. So you're really loading a lot into that one very simple movement. And if you're doing that 5 reps on each side, you're really getting a great warm up for a large portion of your body.
Yeah, and
Not to mention your mind.
and the carryover in that is, improves your running, jumping, and lifting. It covers everything we do in CrossFit.
Absolutely. And that going from imbalance to balance, recognizing that, finding that, and working to stabilize and equalize the strength on both sides, that's imperative to every single thing we do. You're absolutely right.
Sure.
I think another movement that I really like that people kind of groan every time they see it, every time I program it, is I'll program strict pull-ups a lot as opposed to the kipping pull-up. Everybody looks at strict, oh, that's hard. The strict, we don't like working on it because we can't move through it as fast.
A lot of people can't do it.
There's a strength deficit there when you can't do that strict pull-up. And I think that strength deficit carries over into whether or not you can kip efficiently, whether or not you should be kipping, and whether or not you're avoiding injury, right?
Yeah.
Because if you can't do a strict pull-up, you're lacking the control and stability in the muscle groups involved, and you shouldn't be forcing yourself now into a dynamic movement with those muscle groups with the same load
Yeah.
that you're that you're using in the strict movement, which is your body.
Yeah. And I
So
think when people see it, going back to when people see it on the program, it's like the same thing as when they see, snatches. They don't like snatches. They're like, oh, I'm avoiding that
I'm
day.
gonna skip that day.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, I mean, you got to get in those days. These are the days that can improve exactly what you need, right? It's why we program them, because it needs to get done. And you do a workout, if you program a workout that has strict pull-ups in there, you can always catch the cardio elements somewhere else in that workout.
Well, there's probably some sort of cardio element programmed within that workout.
Sure.
So you might have strict pull-ups in running, you might have strict pull-ups in rowing, you might have strict pull-ups in box jumps. I do like putting those together quite a bit.
It's beautiful.
But I think, to the point of carrying that strict movement into also your chest to bar in terms of pulling, carrying that strict movement into muscle ups, you will see people attempting or learning strict ring muscle ups. But when you say to even accomplished athletes, I would like to see a strict bar muscle up, they're,
Ooh,
oh
ouchie.
God, no, horrible.
Well,
How would
I
you
can
even
tell
do that?
you, as advanced as I think I am, that's one of the movements I have a struggle with doing.
But
It's
it's going to
so
teach you
hard.
that control. It's
It's
going to
so
teach you
hard.
proprioception. How is your body moving in space as you get
It's
into
just
that
that
position at
that
the top?
forearm strength you need to be able to hold that bar like this, because you can't hold like this.
Losing track.
The wrists have to be parallel to that bar, above that bar,
Mhm.
in order to create. And let me tell you, that the torque on that forearm is incredible, and it's hard. And what I like to say is, kipping is expression, strict is foundation. And what does that mean? Is, yeah, kipping's beautiful. We can see people kipping and doing kipping bar muscle, kipping kipping bar muscle, kipping muscle ups, kipping chest to bar, and that's great. Look, they look sexy, it looks awesome, but the foundation of it is strict.
I think it's much sexier to be able to do all of those movements strict.
Sure.
First off, the kipping, if you can't do them strict, if you don't have the strength and the power to do them strict, then you lack the control to do them in a kipping dynamic. And to me, that's much less sexy, because now you've got a lot more wild swinging. The form there for the kip is is not where it should be, and you're also risking injury. That's one of the least sexy things I see, is someone, oh, coach, I don't have strict pull-ups, I'm going to scale to kipping. No, that's not the scale.
Not the
Okay,
scale. It's
that's
not the
absolutely
scale.
not the scale.
Not the
Kipping
scale.
is where you want to get to once you have enough strict strength and control, right? And you're able to do 5 to 10 strict pull-ups. Then we move on to the kipping. Then you break it back down.
Let me break it down for you, Jack.
You want to get 5 to 10 strict chest to bar before you're kipping that. And then you break it back down again as you go into those muscle ups. You need to keep coming back to the basics so you're strong enough to do these higher level gymnastics movements.
And one of the movements that has great cardio with it, well, is toes to bar.
Absolutely.
The lat strength you need to be able to, when you're doing toes to bar, to be able to pull that bar down with a straight arm.
Mm-hmm.
You need the lat strength, and that strict pull up really brings itself into that. And then we can all start talking about like durability style movements, things that really, not just in terms of carry over to one movement to another movement, but also durability, shoulder health, knee health, hip health, things like that. I think one of the I tell you, if you ever had a slap tear, rotator cuff, any kind of, like, if you go to see a PT, what's the first things they give you? A banded face pull, right?
Yeah,
the banded face pulls are great. We can do them bands. I like to do them with a bench. Get a bench if you have just a flat bench, you can raise it up a little higher, or if you have the way to incline it up so you have long arms where the dumbbell's not touching the ground, and you're laying on that bench with your chest on the bench and just pulling the dumbbells to your face like this. Just same as the band. I like those much better in terms, like, again, if you're rehabbing an injury, the bands are perfect for that, because it's not
change plate, using the smaller plates, to do the
like
same thing, do an IYT, right? Different types of raises. What's interesting about that is, so now we are PTing or rebuilding strength and ability through strict movements that are generally pulling, or we're moving through other ranges of motion, like we just talked about.
Correct. I mean, we're, you think about it, when we do a deadlift or anything, our shoulders, most of the time we have our wrists are like this, so that shoulders internally rotated. And we're and with that being said, we're never working the opposing external rotation pull high to that face.
All right. So we've got a weakened muscle group that should be supporting that shoulder, and we're not using it.
And we wonder why slap tears and rotator cuff injuries happen. More face pulls. More face pulls should be, and again, that's one of the things I wouldn't. No, you don't put that in the workout of the day, but accessory work after or during warm up work, 100%.
I really like putting a lot of these types of movements in our warm up work. So you're prepping that muscle a little bit. You're actually showing athletes where they have that lack of strength, that lack of balance, and so it kind of wakes up. Oh, maybe I should be doing more of this. Maybe I should take a minute if I come to the gym early and move into some of these accessory movements, because I know that I want to get to a certain point without injury. So maybe I need to start doing these on my own.
What's another one maybe here?
You mentioned Copenhagen planks earlier, and I do like Copenhagen planks. I think they take. That's something we might move into from, say, regular side planks. You're going from, side plank going into a Copenhagen. I think it takes a little bit of training to get yourself in that position.
Yeah, it can be. I think let's look at the basic Copenhagen. So Copenhagen plank, guys, is when you're, let's say you get a bench
or a cigarette.
You serious?
or chew tobacco.
I don't know. I don't know about tobacco.
So
Clearly, I'm not in the
you
know.
get a box or a bench. I like it with a bench where you'll have like, let's say you put your left leg up on top of the bench. You're gonna have your elbow on the ground, right? And you take your other leg and you're basically raising that foot underneath the other one, lowering it and raising it. That's the Copenhagen plank. But let's take it down to the basics. What's the basics? Where you do a lateral plank with hip touch.
Mhm.
That gets you similar work. You know, it's not going to
Lateral
get
plank raises. I actually really like those. I'll program those into my warm-ups as well because you're
yeah,
waking up that oblique
yeah.
that we don't use or concentrate a lot on specifically. We say brace your core, but what does that actually mean? We're not working those obliques enough to be able to allow people to even understand that when we say brace your core, I mean push out, create that belt of stability to protect all of your lower back. And
It will make it bulletproof.
yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
those kinds of things will make your lower body bulletproof. Again, when we raise, getting into that position where we're actually able to get our foot up on a bench and raise that leg up. I've had, I tell you, I used to program it when I did a lot of personal training. I would program that a lot. In terms of CrossFit methodology and the programming, I probably need to throw those back in there. I haven't done them in a while.
I agree. Guys,
Yeah.
that's probably coming up soon. So if you're watching and you're wondering, wait, where did these come from?
Yeah.
The podcast.
Yeah.
We need
Well,
to throw that in.
it's great for groin health too. You know, it's like getting the adduction where you're bringing your leg up, really working on that inner groin area.
Well, even just doing a hold, you don't necessarily
You can
need
hold it.
the dynamic movement there. If we can start moving into the Copenhagen planks with just a hold so that we can get folks a little bit stronger and a little bit more conditioned to that position. And then we move into, the abductor movement there.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think that's
And
true.
have you ever had shin splints?
I used to play soccer. That was what every day, shin splints, constantly.
Oh, yeah.
Lots and lots of shin splints.
So one of the things, another one that we could add it to our programming, that's not a sexy movement at all. It's kind of rather boring. It's probably one of the most boring, underrated movements that I would say that we could do. And it's called the tibialis raise, where you just kind of lean on against the wall, have your knee locked out, and basically all you're doing is raising your toes. You got to think about having my back on the wall like I'm now, right? Have the feet out from me, lock the knees out, just raise your toes with your heel on the ground. Not sexy at all.
No.
Boring. But in terms of shin splints and especially if you are running a lot, because everything's calf related.
Absolutely. And we
Everything's
ignore
calf
that
related.
muscle a lot.
Yeah.
Right. And when we talk about people coming in, I don't think shin splint is as broad a term as it used to be, especially in athletes that didn't start out in sports, maybe soccer or football. And so they don't know that term because they're just started their, athletic journey. But people come in and they're saying, "Oh, coach, it hurts right here," or "This feels like it's pulling on my knee." And then we have to go into some sort of stretch or smash in order to loosen those muscle
and
groups
how
up.
great is that for knee health too?
Absolutely, because when those muscles are too tight, if you will, but what we mean by tight really is not strong enough, right? They are actually pulling on that joint and causing that pain where it doesn't need to be. We need to strengthen that muscle. We need to, put that muscle in a different range of motion, right? So that we can actually support the knees that are pulling on that joint.
Yeah, like one of the I'm CrossFit, right? Let's break it back 10 years ago. I think we all had the calf bands or whatever you call them.
Oh yeah.
Where like I had the Rogue ones where because we're all terrified of shin splints.
Right.
So I always wore
we're
them.
gonna wear a band because that's gonna fix
That was that sleeve. That's what it is. It was a sleeve that like kind of ankle to just below
the
knee
calf sleeve,
where they can. Oh wow, shin splints. We got to wear these for shin splints. I haven't worn those things in.
I remember seeing them and I never wore one.
Yeah.
I never understood. Like I guess it would warm your leg up kind of like we do with the knee sleeve, right? So you're creating some heat there as you warm that up. So some compression, which
Yeah, it does help. I mean,
yeah, it's not terrible.
for sure. But even without the problem, we would still wear them if
Yeah.
we thought, well, he's wearing them. What is it? Oh, I got to wear them too.
Well,
Well,
Gotta
Rich
have all
Froning
the
has them
you
on.
gotta have all the equipment, or are you even a CrossFitter? Like, are you even here? Why'd you even walk in the door?
You know, like, yeah, you look at Rich Froning and he would wear the junk band and just, yeah, I was a Rich Froning guy. I loved him. So if he wore him, I wore him. Another element we can kind of talk about is the movements that have specificity in there, right?
Yeah.
The carryover into CrossFit. And we actually will see these pretty often inside programming, but maybe not often enough.
I really like, so you say carry, and my mind immediately goes, yes, farmer's carry,
Farmers
suitcase
carries.
carry, carrying something heavy over moderate to long distances is absolutely fantastic because it's working your grip, it's working your core, it's forcing you, hopefully, into a better posture, right? And it really makes you have to I'm just carrying this, you just have to like do it, right?
Yeah.
Maybe you stop, take a break, pick it back up, but having to carry, like, can you imagine? Maybe we need to do like an 800-meter
Well,
farmer's
I tell
carry.
you what, I love it. Every time I'm coaching and I see it happen, I have to tell the athlete, you know, as soon as they finish that carry and they drop it down, you see the arms go like this.
Yeah.
it's,
Gravity suddenly
it's like
defied, you're a bird and you're gonna go
all the
floating.
material and all the tightness and all the ligaments and everything are super tight doing this, and as soon as you alleviate it, they want to. It's like a rubber band. They want to just bounce right back up.
Yeah.
It's such an awesome. I love that. I know that I carried pretty far when that happened, or pretty heavy was when I let go of that kettlebell and just.
And your arms just start floating. Yeah. But in order to do that, you know, you have to think about the grip strength it takes. So you're going to start with smaller distances because you're going to work that grip, okay, that forearm strength. And I think that we fail to realize we're not just carrying weight heavy distances, we're actually working that grip strength for other movements, whether it's the pull-up bar, whether it's the deadlift. Like if you're pulling your max deadlift, you better have really good grip. You better have worked on that grip because that can make or break any lift,
Oh
cleans,
yeah.
snatches, right? That grip strength is important. So how do we work that? Simple things like a carry, pick something up, carry it a long distance, right? Keep that elbow straight so we're not bending at that joint, we're not forcing an
Well, you don't want
injury.
to blow a bicep
No, you
down.
don't.
That's
And that's a mistake I see a lot of, whether it's in here doing a heavy carry, whether you're doing step ups with a dumbbell, whether you're carrying groceries, instead of just keeping that arm extended and loading the bigger muscles, suddenly people are, oh, this is heavy, so I need to bend that elbow to compensate.
Or the other issue is that they'll have a drag on their body, right? So it's pulling them down, and so
So now
they're all like this. And I tell people, pull that
Pull it
item
off,
off
yeah.
your leg. Don't let it rub. It's rubbing. You got to
Bring that
engage better.
chest up.
Bring that chest up, shoulder blades in the back pocket.
That's
Don't let it
right.
rub.
Absolutely.
Don't let it rub.
Proper carry form. We ignore that a lot. And so then it kind of defeats the purpose when you see it programmed and people are doing it and they're not, you know, they get 100 feet away from the coach and you turn your back to look at someone else and suddenly they're doing all
that's
kinds
one of those
things.
elements you could program pretty often because it's durability wise, it doesn't really wreck you.
No,
Right.
it doesn't.
And it's great for breathing, learning how to control bracing, breathing while you're moving weight. And that's one of those things you can definitely throw in a program. And I mean, you know, farmers carries or suitcase carry, any kind of carry like that, we should be seeing.
You know, going into a front rack carry, overhead carry.
I'll carry your books. I'll carry a torch. I'll carry a tune. I'll carry on, carry over, carry forward.
Yeah,
carries
so
are
many
one of my
different ways.
favorite things. Yeah,
and it should be
absolutely.
programmed once a week, if not once every 2 weeks.
Note, people, so now we also have carries coming up. We're going to be doing Copenhagen planks and carries next week, in case you're wondering
That
where
would
we
be
came from.
Milan right there, those two.
I didn't say the same thing. You're way meaner than I am. Good Lord,
And
folks.
then we have our Star Destroyer sled.
The sled push and sled pull. I absolutely love that movement. There's different ways to do it. You've got the locked out arms. You can do it where you've got your chest against the handles, so you're maybe not using that arm as much. But I really do love the push pull movement in that. You can also, you know, it's great, especially if you're scaling for injuries too. So because if you can't run, but you can push a heavy sled, you can pull a heavy sled. If you can't hold on to something and you can't use your arms, you can put a belt around you, which is attached to a strap or a rope, and you can still move that sled, right, in one direction or another. You can strap it around your shoulders. There's so many different things you can do with a sled, and you're moving, right, but you don't have the constant heel strike that you do with running. It slows things down, and you load that with enough weight, and it's a fantastic workout.
Yeah, the sled, when you're walking backwards with that sled, we're humans. We're always going forward.
Hmm.
We're never working the opposing direction, right? Talking about knee issues, alleviating and fixing knee problems. Walk with a sled backwards.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely. You're
and
loading a different muscle group entirely.
yeah, and like the knees over toe guy, that's one of his main things is walk with a sled backwards. And you can see knee health really, really get better with that. What's another one here? Dead hanging.
Yeah.
Dead hanging.
You'll see that a lot. I generally do it in a warm up or a cool down. I don't put them in the workout itself, but
But there is value
yeah,
to some
absolutely.
people if you do that. You know,
Yes, that's
going
true.
back
Yeah.
to the strict pull-ups, right? If they can't hang from the bar,
It's a great scaling option. I'll give you
it's a
that.
great
Yeah.
scaling option, right? So maybe they can hang for 10 to 15 seconds. They can't do any kind of pulling work, but it's gonna transfer over to that pull up.
Absolutely, because you're forcing the upper body, you're making that grip work, right? So we're working the forearms, we are getting the lat involved, whether, you can make it an active hang, right? Bring those shoulder blades into your back pocket. So there's a lot of things you can do with the hang, and you can change up the width of that grip, right? You can use overhand, underhand
Yeah.
grip. So there's a lot of things you can do with
Well,
that.
and I like so Dave Durante. When listen to him speak, Dave Durante is a ex USA Olympian,
Mhm.
gymnastic Olympian, and we're talking about the wording of dead hangs. And he's like, we don't say that. We say open shoulder, closed shoulder, open shoulder, closed shoulder.
I do, and that's yeah, and I think it's just dead versus active is a little bit more accessible to
It's
everyone. So if you're
CrossFit.
not
It's cross.
explaining what we mean by that, if you're hanging there like a dead weight, I think calling it as a dead hang is fair.
Yeah, yeah.
If you're activating muscle groups in order to, not be there like a dead weight, then an active hang is also fair.
Yeah.
So
Well, I think it's that CrossFit terminology. Like when we hear, like we've been stuck with it for 15 years, and you hear somebody of his caliber say that, and you're like, have I been saying it wrong though? I mean, should I use his way or
keep it
right,
simple.
keep it simple?
Right.
Right.
Maybe if
Squeeze
we're
your butt.
talking, right, squeeze your butt, not activate your glutes. Like,
Yeah.
you know. So sometimes we need to take these words because I'm not saying people won't understand them. Most people will understand that, but we don't want you taking a few seconds to be like, wait, did coach just tell me to open my shoulder? What did they mean?
Well, it's almost counterintuitive, right? Open shoulder, closed shoulder. So open is dead, where you think open is like active. So I think the word open, if I open a door, I'm actively opening the door versus closing a door where I just let it go. I don't know. Anyway, it's counterintuitive in a way.
Mine has never gone in that direction. I'm not sure what that says about either one of us.
All right, let's move on from the specificity of movements and programming mistakes that we'll see. Right, biases. Right, biases can happen.
Well, if
we're looking at the sexy movements versus the not sexy movements, but like we've been talking about the underrated movements. How do you tackle that?
I tend to take these underrated movements and I find a way to work them into, again, I'll work them into the warm up. I might work them into the cool down. A lot of times I'll work them into an accessory that comes after the workout, or, I think most recently this past year, I've been putting gorilla rows into actual WODs, along with, you might do a gorilla row, set of 14 alternating, and then you're going to do a shuttle run, you add that in there, and people, I think, were a little bit surprised because that's usually considered an accessory. But if you put the gorilla row in a 21-minute AMRAP, you put it in there with some box jumps, you've got some running, or you've got some push-ups, then you're doing the gorilla row. Suddenly that accessory movement, right, that boring movement is a little bit more exciting.
Well, you know how you do that? Add some value onto that is that crazy gorilla row that I've told you about before. The little burpee in there with a little,
Yes, everyone's really going to appreciate it when that comes up in the programming.
Well, and another one, I tell you, and I just thought about it, and another underrated movement that I used to do a lot of, because you think of, like, you don't have a GHD here.
No. Takes up a lot of space.
It takes a lot of
collects
space.
A lot of dust.
And most gyms early on didn't have one, couldn't afford one, nor the hamstring curls.
Yeah.
I tell you what, I program those pretty oftenly after a deadlift session. Right, I'll do whatever it is, deadlift wise, and then afterwards Nordic hamstring curls. Or if people, and that's hard for a lot of people to do, I'll get a bench, grab a bench out, grab a dumbbell, and have them lay flat on the bench on their chest, right, and have them pinch the dumbbell with their feet and just do hamstring raises.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and
Hamstring
then
curls.
another movement like that where you're not using any weight, a frogger. So you got your legs in a diamond, your feet are together,
Yeah.
you know, your knees are out in that diamond position. A frogger, you know, I like that in place of a GHD. I also like Superman extensions. There's a lot of ways to do the work we would normally work on or do on a GHD without the GHD.
Yeah, and I can tell you, I remember pulling 475 on a deadlift, and we didn't have a GHD. That was all we would do Nordic hamstring curls probably once a week.
I'm not saying gyms don't. If you have the room, if you have the budget, and you know you're going to use them often,
It's a great
sure,
machine.
fantastic. But
You need the room.
when you have a smaller space like we do, right, or premium space, so I want air conditioning as opposed to a GHD. Okay, you make your choices. There's ways around not having any piece of equipment.
And again, it's one of those things where if you get one GHD, you can kind of use that in a cool down or now I say cool down, but accessory work style, with one person getting on, another person getting on, and kind of rotating like that. There's a lot of great CrossFit.com workouts that have GHD work within the workout. But you would need more than one.
You would need several of those, or staggering your programming, doing some more emails.
Yeah, there's
That's
ways
not
to
horrible either.
But to your point, you don't necessarily need a GHD to do some great work. Again, Nordic hamstring curls. You want to deadlift heavy, Nordic hamstring curls are great. So I tell you, some programming mistakes. Again, going to biases here for me. Interval training. And let me tell you, when I say interval, I see monostructural, one rower, one bike, whatever it is you use. And it's just sexy doing a 1 minute on, 2 to 3 minute rest, like a 1 to 2,
Oh no,
1 to 3.
people look at that and they're like, this is boring.
And I was that guy, but let me tell you, I did an interval this morning, and nothing will light. I try to put them in as much as possible. As being that said, matters on how much time value you have with it. What I mean by that is, like, if you're programming, like for my gym, consistently only have 3 or 4 sessions a week. So trying to slide that in there can be a little tough sometimes. I try to, like, if it's the workout, like for instance, we're doing, if we have a hero workout in a week that's long, grunty, I'll throw that in there with that, because it's relatively, it won't overboard too much of you for a hero workout or something like that. But look, if you want to build an engine, and I love doing like a pyramid style, where you go like 30 seconds hard, rest a minute.
Yeah, where you
minute
twice
hard,
the rest instead of a 1-to-1 rest, so you double up the rest in terms of work. I do like that. I like varying how you do it. So sometimes an interval might be 800-meter run, okay, 2-minute rest. Sometimes it might be 400-meter run, 200-meter walk.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Folks, that is coming up soon, in case you haven't looked at Friday. But there's all kinds of different ways to do intervals. And when I was doing longer distance runs, I actually found the intervals to be more productive, and they advanced my ability to run further distances more than just running further distances.
Sure.
Instead of going out running 5 miles, 6 miles, 7 miles, 10 miles a day, when I was doing this interval running, it was building my engine more efficiently, and I was better able to perform in the long distance run. So I think that they are a great way, especially when you have limited time, like it's a class or you only have so many classes a week that people can come to. It's a great way to get that training in there without, okay, guys, we're going to go on a 3-mile run today. Nobody's showing up for that. I'm not showing up for that. No.
Well, and the other part that interval training is great for is how to work your lactic acid, flushing it out. If you're doing if you're on a rower and you're getting off that rower and you just kind of go and sit down, we keep moving around, learn how to flush out that lactic acid. That way, when you get back on that row or after that rest,
Right. So
you're ready.
when we're doing intervals with these unilateral movements, like running, like rowing, we don't. It's not the rest in the same context
Correct.
as when we're doing max cleans, right? So
If you're
in a max,
laying on the ground after you did an interval, no, 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 no,
no,
no,
no,
no, no,
that's not what
no,
we mean.
no.
And that's why specifically we'll program sometimes 400-meter run, 200-meter jog. Because what I mean by rest is, or maybe it's a 200-meter walk. What I mean is you're still moving, right? You're not sitting down. You're still keeping yourself moving. You're not a rock, okay? But you're not performing at that higher intensity. So I want a rest that is active recovery versus, again, a heavy lift where I just try to max deadlift. Now I'm going to sit down before I do another attempt.
Yeah.
So there's a different meaning behind rest in those.
And
In the
another one
intervals.
I see you program that you'll often program that's terms of programming mistakes that you don't fall victim to a lot is the unilateral strength.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I look for ways to get that
Getting
unilateral
side to
strength in there,
side,
right?
you
Are
know.
we doing lunges? Are we doing pistols? Are we doing gorilla rows? Are we doing single arm push press? How can I get, maybe it's that RDL that we like to program, the single leg RDLs. I like to find at least once a week some sort of unilateral movement to put in, whether it's a strength piece before a workout. I also really like doing lateral box step ups. I don't think we see enough of those, right? To get with
Oh,
that
let me tell
lateral
you,
movement of the hip is important.
you get a couple. I like to do these with weight. So where you're doing that lateral box step over, where you take the right leg. If I'm standing on this side of the box, right, I'm taking my exterior leg, bringing it over on top of the box, and then stepping down with it. And let me tell you, the hips light up after that.
Absolutely. I think doing it that way, doing it just a regular lateral side to side, any way that you can change it up and build strength in that different range of motion, right? In that different direction, let's do it.
Yeah.
Let's find a way. Dumbbell plank pull across, right? So now you're in a plank, you're working everything you normally would in a plank, but suddenly I'm making you balance on one hand, reach underneath and grab a dumbbell and pull it across while you're
Or
staying in that
the
plank.
wall ball.
The lateral wall ball
Ball throw.
toss.
Yeah. You do program those pretty often. I love seeing it.
Yeah, and plus, I mean, what's more gratifying than just taking a ball, a heavy ball, and just throwing it and slamming it into a wall, especially if you had a bad day, a hard day, or you know you got one coming up. Let's break something or
And
not break. Don't actually break
and
it.
I like programming those with when there's a complementary, not I want to say complementary, but an agitating movement before that kind of wears you out a little bit
Hmm.
to go into that. You're like, ugh, ugh, ugh.
You don't make that
My
face when you
arms,
do
I
it.
don't make that face. Ugh, ugh.
No, I agree. And I think another mistake so that we tend to make as programmers, and I try to avoid it a lot, is we avoid movements that expose those weaknesses and a lot of times it's the weakness in ourselves. Like, well, I don't have that movement yet, or I hate that movement, so I'm not going to program
That's
it.
that program biases that can happen.
I have a list of movements that I don't like. Like, for instance, I don't like rowing, but you'll see rowing in here once a week. I'm confessing, folks, I don't like rowing, but we row a lot in here.
Yeah.
So train not just your weaknesses, train the things you hate, because oftentimes the things you hate are what you are the weakest at. So I think, and we always see people like, again, and that weakness might be even smaller. Might not be talking about pull up weakness or muscle up weakness. I do.
How about burpee weakness? More burpees coming.
There's no burpee weakness in my gym, folks. We do a lot of burpees here. But even just smaller movements like banded side steps or wall sit ERs with a band around those knees.
Yeah.
And I get a lot of complaints about that because I love that movement for warming up for those squats. And people really don't like those movements because, first off, wall sits are not generally enjoyable if you haven't done a lot of them, or even if you have. I'm not going to put a band around your knees and I'm going to ask you to do external rotations, right? Throw that hip and you're going to be like, no.
Especially after you have the lateral plank, the lateral walks or lateral plank walks before that going into the wall. Yeah. Oh yeah. Those are, I love that's one of the warm ups that goes without saying should be in there.
Yeah.
Pretty often.
And I see that a lot. People are like, why are we doing the same warm up? And like, because this is still a weakness you have. I can visually see it. So we're doing this until the cows come home.
Yeah.
Because I want to expose the weakness and I want to get rid of that weakness.
Well, you know what?
Can we train something to make you not weak?
notice the weakness that I see a lot of is you see people with their feet are duck out, like toed out, right? And walking like that, right? So they have none of this turned on. They don't know how to activate any of it. They don't know how to keep their toes straight when they walk. So when you get them to do that, when you focus as a coach to make sure they have their feet, toes pointing forward, get on the wall as you're doing your monster walks, and get on the wall. And again, not having your toes flared out, have your toes straight and press out on those knees.
Yeah.
You know, it'll help it fix that imbalance of that, which if you have ankle, knee, hip problems and you're walking like that, it's probably why.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So if there's a weakness, we will find it and we will train it.
I will find you.
That's a rated R movie.
That is a rated R movie. If we're rated, this is not a rated R podcast. I don't think, unless Mertz is by himself, we'll leave you alone one day.
Would probably the producer probably hasn't cut out too many words this time around. I didn't really
don't
curse a
know.
whole
The
lot.
one podcast, I think it was like beep, 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 beep. And then he just finally cut out a whole section of you talking. It was really bad. Folks, we should probably go. I'm Coach Tanya.
I'm Coach Mertz.
That's Coach Mertz. This
Right?
has been the Affiliate Soapbox. Please like, share, and follow. Have a great week.